Right, good evening, everybody. Welcome to tonight's Audit and Governance Committee. This meeting is being live streamed on the Council's YouTube channel. The recording of the meeting will remain online for 4 years, and if you are present in the chamber, you are consenting to appearing in the recording and broadcast, which may also be used for training purposes. We'll just hand the laptop back. There you go. And we'll crack on with the meeting as per usual. So going through the agenda, item number 1, apologies. Do we have any apologies? We've got Councillor Brooker there's a substitute. It's Lorraine. Yeah, okay. Not aware of any others, and it looks like it's a full turnout. So item number 2, declarations of interest. Okay. Item number 3, the minutes of the last meeting. Hopefully everyone will have had a chance to read those. I've just got one slight query on the minutes. Number 44.5, it refers to the principal auditor confirmed that an audit relating to homelessness would be completed for March. I'm wondering, is that supposed to be referring to the housing benefit internal audit?
The homeless pathways is being done at the moment and will be issued probably in April.
Okay, that's fine. So it is a different one. Okay, that's fine. I don't have any other questions on the minutes. So if everyone is happy, I can sign that one off. Yeah, sorry, Andrew. Okay.
I thought you wanted to vote, definitely.
No, but we don't need to vote for the minutes. Okay. So the next item, public question time. There's no members of the public here. Petitions and deputations, I haven't received any. So we can move on to item number 6, which is the external audit update. We have somebody from Deloitte, is that correct? Sorry, can you introduce yourself and your name?
Yeah, that's fine. So I'm Misha Hopton, so I'm from Deloitte. I'm the lead director on the external audit.
I just have a few questions, and just on behalf of us all, and I'm sure we're wondering the same thing. I was hoping we would have seen a report from the auditors on the 21-22 accounts for tonight's meeting. I'm looking at the deadline for completing the accounts is March the 31st, which is only a few weeks away. And I'm just wondering, where are we on that? And I suppose the second question is there any issues that will be flagging up that we should be aware of?
Do you want me to?
Can I just pop in first, Declan? Myself and the audit colleague have been discussing this offline, really, and we thought it'd be useful for the Deloitte to give an update on where we are with regards to the government consultation, with regards to the backstop and the signing of accounts, because I think it's not being clear from the government at the moment. They haven't fully got the legislation through what the expectation is between the requirements for the external audit partnerships at the moment and what the work is that we're required to do. So I was wondering if Michelle could just give a quick update on what they feel they are, and then I can give an update on where we are with the accounts, if that's okay.
Yep, happy with that.
So in relation to the consultation around the imposing a backstop date, and that backstop date is proposed to be in the end of September. That consultation hasn't closed yet. I think it's closing in about a week's time. But what we're expecting that to say is that there's a minimum amount of work they're expecting us to do. So we have to do VFM as a priority, and that's VFM covering all open years. And also the expectation is that councils will produce the accounts. So for you 2022 and 2023 are produced, and they go through the public inspection period. And that allows that time for anything to come out of that inspection period to be closed also before the 30th of September. So obviously what we're looking to do is, as Deloitte is looking at what does that consultation mean on the resources and prioritisation of work that we'll be asked to prioritise in that period. So we're just working through that at the moment. in terms of what that means. But I suppose for you as the minimum, I know Greg's working on that. It is prioritising VFM to get the VFM concluded before the 30th of September.
Can I just clarify that? Does that mean the date's been moved further back now? Because I thought the 31st of March was the drop dead date, essentially, but it sounds like now it's the 30th of September.
It's still a moving feast, I understand, Declan. So unfortunately, I gather that government has been unable to actually get the legislation through Parliament at this stage. So it's been moved back to that September deadline, subject to obviously getting it through legislation. So it still hasn't achieved that as yet as well. But that is the current proposal, is September now as opposed to the March position.
Again, further clarification, where exactly are we then as regards the annual audit being complete? Is it going to take until September the 30th?
That's still to be determined with regards to capacity from the consultation, what's actually the government is asking for. So if they're asking for this VFM only in the first instance, it'll be up to the audit firms to determine what level of work that they're doing at each site, what they can deliver across the whole the local government environment, if you like, in order to deliver best practice across the thing as we understand it. So the current consultation, the dates close, I think, next week or later this week, at which point the bodies involved will obviously come to some sort of conclusion as to what that means with regards to whether the value for money element of the audit is all that is required, or whether there is an option to still do the audit accounts as well. Obviously, from my perspective, if it is only the value for money element at this stage, what comes next? Because there's got to be a period, there's got to be some sort of work done at a later stage when the capacity is available to do it. But whether that will be via our current auditors or whether that will move to our new auditors, we're still to wait to for the conclusion of that consultation.
Just for the benefit of the committee, VFM is value for money audits, which is an important part of local government auditing. Would I be right in thinking that the value for money audit is, if you look at it separately from the full audit, is that nearly complete? Could there be a report on that by the next meeting, which would be July?
I suppose, yeah, that would be our intention to get it done to the July committee, yes. So I understand, so Eumaeus, the senior manager, is working through that. He's leading that piece of work and working with Greg and Hadrian to make sure we've got the information to complete that work. So we are looking to prioritise that within that period, yes.
What's the plan for 22-23?
The same plan basically, Declan, is we've is to produce the 22-23 accounts by the as soon as possible to get those published onto the website. As Michelle says, that will then be subject to them being there and available and subject to public consultation. However, it remains within the same consultation with regards to the government as to what level of work needs to be done on those accounts. As I understand it, the current proposal is that the VFM covers all outstanding VFM at this stage, if you like. So they'll be doing the last 2 years they'll do all as one exercise, but subject to just publishing the accounts. We still don't know what the requirement will be for the actual audit of those once this consultation is completed.
Anybody here, any further questions on that? Okay, so as regards 22-23, I appreciate this was external audit update. There was a commitment from the administration to publish a draft version of 22-23 before the May elections, really. So that's getting pretty close now. Is that still the intention?
That's what we're working to, Declan. We're all my officers are working as hard as possible to get that date and achieve that position.
Do we have any indication of when that might be?
I can't give a firm time frame at this stage, but we are working as hard as possible to do that.
Okay. So I suppose the other question is, as regards the external audit, what's been done so far, is everything run relatively smoothly, and there's no major issues that the committee needs to be aware of?
So as we just in relation to 2022, we haven't commenced the audit of that piece of work. So with the consultation, so like I say, the consultation, we expected a backstop date of March. So at that point, we were having conversations and waiting for that consultation to be announced and finalised to understand what the impact of that was. We now have a consultation, albeit the backstop is a different date. So I suppose we're just working to really understand what that means in terms of financial statement audit, how our resources at Deloitte can prioritise what, the significant amount of work that we need to do in a 6-month period, and what that means in terms of the council audit. So there's nothing to bring to attention for FY22 because we haven't actually commenced work of FY22, just to be clear.
Consultation was still ongoing. I didn't quite hear.
Yes, I mean, it closed on the 7th, I believe. I don't know what the time frame is, but it closed on the 7th. I don't know how long it...
Closes in September.
No, it closed 7th this week. 7th of March it closes this.
So as an authority, have we put anything in?
I will be.
You have done.
I will be putting a response in for the consultation.
Okay. What will you be saying?
I don't know off the top of my head, Andrew, I'm afraid, but I'll be putting in a response for the Gloucester City Council.
That's on behalf of what, your colleagues here, or the administration, or this committee, in fact.
From me, for the administration.
It's all about us as a committee. Can we make a representation and tell central government what our take is on this consultation exercise?
I can provide the consultation links. That's to yourself or the whole committee. Yeah.
That actually would be very helpful. I think it's fair to say that the committee as a whole is a bit frustrated at the lack of progress in producing the final accounts. So I can't see any harm in doing that.
No, so the reason I ask is that over the years we've always prided ourselves in the timely way all this work has been done. And to be told, the consultation is ongoing, well, I'd be pretty chuffed if my views could be put forward to. Although this is a non-political committee who are made up of chair, vice, different political parties, I think I'd to pick up the opportunity to be consulted as well. Perhaps you could send me a draft, Sir Humphrey. No, I'm joking on that. But I've got only until the 7th. I don't know what the committee thinks. I think we ought to make our views known about the more delays continuing on and on and on and on. Looking a lot of puzzled faces over there. Not much support, I guess.
Sash, Councillor Patel, and then Councillor Burkett.
Thanks, Chair. I wasn't aware of this consultation. I don't know if that's just me or if the rest of the committee weren't aware of it either. Because if the deadline is next week, why are we only finding about it today? And then Andrew's proposal or suggestion doesn't give us much time, does it? So all this time we've been waiting for the completion, and now we're being told that's going to be put back till September. I mean, do we need to wait for that consultation to be looking at our audit report? I don't understand. Sorry, I'm confused, Chair. Can you please seek some clarification? Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, I was just thinking that, if this was a private business, the directors would be held to account and they could end up going to prison or paying large fines. So why is it one rule for local government and another rule for private companies? What's going on? I mean, I know that's a tough question to answer, but that's going to be on people's minds.
I don't know who wants to
there's a number of different issues, if you like, with regards to the local government audit backlog. And one of them is that this consultation is looking to obviously review is how to move away from this backlog, which predominantly stems from a lack of resource from in the audit sector in order to deliver the audits. So Gloucester City Council is one of hundreds of unfortunately local authorities in exactly the same position with regards to not having their accounts audited at this stage. The one thing I would say for Gloucester City Council is we're slightly different in the fact that the reason we haven't got our 22-23 accounts published is not because of that, it's because of the cyber incident. So we are working to rehydrate the systems in order to get the data back onto the system. If we hadn't had that cyber incident, I would fully expect that our audits, our statements to be on the website and hopefully have been audited. We were just unfortunate with that cyber incident, which has been a real concern, a real challenge for the team in order to bring that data back, unfortunately. But as I said, we're doing everything we can in order to get those accounts published so that we are transparent. We've got them on the website, and then we won't, unfortunately, however, be able to get them audited because of this ongoing consultation. But we're doing everything we can as a team to do that.
With respect to Saj's question on the consultation,
Yeah, sorry. So, as my understanding was, it's very much. I think Declan, you included from the PSAA. There was a meeting earlier this week. I don't know if you were able to attend as I think you were invited as the chair, which gave an update from the 4 bodies who were responsible for this consultation. General practice is, with regards to these, that these would be completed by the officers of the council in what we think we can, whether it's deliverable or not. But I'm happy to obviously share the consultation with the committee should anyone of the committee want to review it and consider any potential responses.
Just very quickly, when central government, the Chancellor of the Exchequer, look at all the replies and they say the majority of councils didn't, but Gloucester City replied. I think I'd much rather be in that part than the ones who didn't reply. So I'm just hoping that the committee will agree to Declan and I sending something off, even if it's only a short note saying City Council Audit and Governance Committee noted the consultation was ongoing. And despite the short timeline, we wanted to make our views known and just keep them very simple and non-controversial and sort of emphasising the continual delays. And the point you making was a really good one. And as I said before, in the past, we've always been very proud of the way we've done our accounts quickly and got them signed off quickly. This is the exact opposite. And I think it really would be remiss of us not to take up the opportunity of being consulted. I can imagine in some office in Whitehall saying most of them were so disinterested they didn't bother to reply. Well, I don't think Gloucester City Council should be like that. Just finally, when I was in the Cabinet before I left it, I was always very keen when there was a consultation to ensure that Gloucester City Cabinet made a submission and a reply, even if it was only a very short one to show that we were on the ball and we'd noticed. I don't know if that helps or not.
Yeah, if the committee accepts, can I suggest that I'll write the response to the consultation and share it with the chair and deputy and before sending it off.
yep, I'd be happy with that, if everyone else is. So, sorry, yep.
Oh, sorry, I just wanted to cover, I think it was just helpful just to kind of reiterate the reasons why Gloucestershire City are kind of where they are in terms of FY22, and it really does all stem to cyber incident because, like you say, before that, it was on track, good quality financial statements were prepared and signed off on time. We did have resource in the summer to do the audit, but so I just want to reiterate, you are in this position really because of the cyber incident. So I just really wanted to make that clear, really.
So if I was just to summarise where I think we are then, value for money audit, we would hope to see something by the next meeting in July. And as regards the full account sign off, September is the drop dead date. As regards 22-23, we don't know yet what the government's going to come back with.
So the drop dead date is for all open years. So 22-23 is in that as well. So it's everything to be done at that point in time. Actually, to make it clear, anything not completed at that time, it would be a disclaimer audit opinion, effectively saying we can't, because of the legally enforced or the legislation saying we have to sign an opinion at that date, we have to give an opinion, and it would be a disclaimer opinion. And that's, I think, what Greg alluding to, that would mean then there could be some additional work for the new auditors around opening balances. But I think that's all part of the consultations, understanding what is needed over the opening balances into 23-24 financial year.
Okay. Oh, Ashley.
I think it's just, for me, it's just a worrying case. You know, for so many years, Gloucester City Council has been really good at managing its accounts, and it's just been something to be really proud of for such a long time. And it just seems to have slipped a bit, or a lot, in some sense. And just getting back on track would be really, really good. Just make that point.
Sorry, did somebody else wanting to come in? No? Oh, yeah, Greg.
Just taking on from that point, you know, unfortunately, that we will then be going through a transfer of auditors as well. So we're already in discussion with our new audit firm, Bishop Fleming, who will be taking on the future audits, so that we're looking to already start the 23-24 audits to get us back on track going forward now as well. So we're not waiting until these ones have all been concluded. We're trying to do everything timely so that we're all you know, we're back on track within a suitable time frame.
Very helpful. Thank you very much, Greg. Okay, I think we're... Oh, one last word from Saj.
Thanks, Chair. Am I right in assuming that at this current moment in time, then, there are no financial penalties that the authority has been hit with? Is that correct?
Yeah, there's no financial penalties as a result of non signing off of the audited statements at the moment. As I said, unfortunately, it's not just Gloucester; it is common across the sector. But hopefully, we'll start to move forward soon and see those completed.
Okay, thank you everybody for that. I think we'll move on to agenda item number 7, which is the statement of accounts for 21-22, although they are the draft accounts. Right, well, we have them here for reference, really. I've had a bit of a read of them, and as usual, these reports, the most interesting part is the narrative, which sets it all in context. But, you know, you can see how old these are. They sort of got the mayor, Councillor Finnegan, and the sheriff, Councillor Pam Tracy. That's how long ago we're talking about, yes. Yes, previous one. So, unless anyone has any questions about them, I suggest that we just note the fact that we've got them, and they have been published on the website in draft form. So there is progress there. So has anybody else got any comment or anything to say on them? No? Okay, brilliant. We'll move on then to item number 8, I believe, which is the internal audit activity progress report. Is that Yash?
Thank you, Chair, and good evening to you and to the committee. So on page 95 of your agenda pack, Chair, you have the internal audit progress report. And since your last meeting, which was, I think, only 7 weeks ago, we've issued 3 reports. One which had an assurance level of acceptable, one which was a consultation piece, and of course, a follow-up piece of work that we said would come to this committee. So happy to take questions on those. You also have, Chair, the recommendation monitoring table as well. So you've got a table, but then below that you have much more detail into the individual recommendations. There's also an update from our counter fraud team, and just to say that we've had 7 irregularities reported in this financial year, and the last of those is due to be closed shortly. And on page 117 you have the actual annual internal audit plan showing the progress against that to date. So happy to pause there, Chair, and take any questions.
Yeah, I have a few questions. On the first one really is just on the first audit of the housing benefits and the council tax reduction. There's a few concerning things there. We haven't been doing reviews of existing claims. I wonder, there's that, and before we address that, there's also the comment that we haven't been taking part in the National Fraud Initiative matching exercise, but on page 110 it says we are taking part in that. I'm wondering, is this just simply on the housing benefit bit, but we're doing it for other items?
I'll speak very briefly on the National Fraud Initiative. Obviously, with the cyber incident, there's been, I think, if I'm correct, a sort of a partial attempt at it because we haven't been able to get all of the data. And so what it is, just for the benefit of the committee, it takes data on several different areas, so payroll, council tax, income, that sort of thing. And it compares that to data from lots and lots of other public bodies, councils. And sometimes you get a match. So you might have somebody with a bank account or a payroll here and a payroll somewhere else, so you could investigate that. Those are called matches. And what's happened is that all of the matches have not been looked at because of the cyber incidents. So that's where we are. There's been a partial, I think, go at that. I'll bring Bruno in to respond to your question on the housing benefit.
It's the data was not available for the NFI. That's why it was not done.
Yeah, from memory, whenever we had the cyber attack, I think what we did was we continued paying housing benefits as they were, and any new claims that came along, we did it manually. And I think probably the reason why we haven't been able to upload data to the Cabinet Office is because a lot of these records are still manual. Would that be correct?
I'll just chip in. It was largely because we'd been cyber attacked. The cabinet office wouldn't let us link to their systems, and it's very much send data files between the two and do that match. And I think that I could be wrong, but I think that's now been resolved. But that was an issue for a very long time because they were being safeguarding their own data. So that was the main cause.
Do we know the extent of this problem? Because it clearly says here that there were instances with several housing benefit claims for the same addresses, which may have been houses of multiple occupancy, but may not have been. That suggests there's a real possibility there that we might have been overpaying housing benefits or paying housing benefits to fraudulent claimants. That could potentially be a lot of money lost to the authority. Do we know how bad this actually is?
During the audit, we didn't have the materiality, so I'm not able to answer that question. What we highlighted in the audit report is the lack of control to be able to mitigate that risk. But no, we didn't have the materiality. I'm not able to tell you how much it corresponds to.
Does anybody have any other questions on this particular aspect of it? This is the housing benefits audits. The recommendation, it's one of the things a high priority. Really crucial that we sort of resolve this and action this as quickly as we can. And I see it's added onto the list, but if that's something that, well, I know you will do anyway, could follow up on and just keep an eye on, because I think the potential for loss there could be quite serious. I see on the section 106 follow-up, we still have 4 high and 2 medium actions or recommendations that are still outstanding. It looks to me like some of them, a lot of it seems to be not being able to reconcile the records, and is it Exicom you call it, back to the general ledger, and that looks like that's going to take some time to sort out, whereas new section 106 agreements are being properly recorded and properly reconciled, but the older ones, there still seems to be a bit of an issue there. And I think one of the cases is we couldn't find the evidence that it had been closed, I think. How long do you think it will take to resolve all of that?
Thank you, Chair. I'm afraid I don't have an answer to that, of how long it will take to go back through some of the historical agreements. So, as you've said, we're prioritising those that are new and those that are live, because obviously they're the highest risk to the council. The majority of the ones that are live, we are in a comfortable position with, although full reconciliation hasn't been possible yet. we're pretty confident that what the general ledger tells us is correct. But of course, we want Execom to tell us the same as the ledger. So we don't want to confirm anything until those two systems tell us exactly the same thing. So we are in a bit of a limbo position at the moment. But like you say, anything new is going straight onto Execom and will be up to date right from the start. So it is just that retrospective piece of work which is taking some time. And I think just to put it into perspective, some of the Section 106 agreements that we've got, there are hundreds of purchase orders that relate to those funds. So going back, double checking, obviously the finance team have got a lot of other work that they're trying to do at the moment, which is of high priority to the committee and obviously to the council. So we are, trying to kind of balance the risk in terms of how much resource time is taken to do this. But we are, we're in a relatively comfortable position, I think, in terms of the risk to the council.
Anyone, do you have any questions on Section 106?
Yeah, I do.
Right, yeah.
But I'm happy for other people to go first.
Looks like you got the floor.
So, sorry to be repetitious here, but members will remember that this piece of work was done at my request when I was the lead member for housing and planning, because I thought that there were issues around the bookkeeping and the record keeping which didn't tally. And there were there was quite a few discrepancies, weren't there? Totaling hundreds of thousands. And then they were put right, we addressed those. And I also remember pointing out that we have city elections this year, a couple of months' time. And I was given a guarantee that all of this work would be completed at the last audit and governance meeting of the civic year before we go off and either seek to be re-elected and fail, or don't seek to be re-elected and have a much better time. So whichever, quite a few of us in one of those, well, all of us are in one of those categories. So it's disappointing for me that this work isn't completed with all of the loose ends tied up as we were told they would be. And I think it's disappointing too that over half of the serious recommendations, or whatever the term is that you make, haven't been addressed, haven't been resolved. And to me, that sends, I question, Greg, Ruth, how seriously the work of internal audit is taken. Because when I worked for HMRC and before that GCHQ, if there was an urgent piece of work, it was just done, everything was dropped. And it just, to me, sorry to be, if you think I'm being disrespectful, I'm disappointed that we haven't made more of an effort to tie up these loose ends. The word however, appears quite a few times in the report. We've done this work, however, we've done that work, however, and there is still a lot of work to do. And I'm disappointed that it hasn't been done. And, it just seems to me it's open-ended. It will be done when it's done. And to me, that's not good enough when internal audit have already been in and highlighted where there are differences and discrepancies which need addressing. I think we should have been much more robust. Whether or not I get back in May is up to the voters in my neighbourhood. You've got a word in for me.
It's the will of the people, Andrew.
Okay, so, you could have guessed, everybody could have guessed what I'd say, because I've made these points before, but I do find it disappointing that more than half of the recommendations are still to be finalised. I'll do my best to get back, but I can't guarantee it.
Anybody want to respond?
Yeah, if I may, I can understand Andrew's concerns. I think from the recommendation, I think it's keen to point out that management accepted the recommendations in the report. We acknowledge that there was some improvements that need to be made, and we're working towards those. We've concentrated on some of the main points that the committee had, such as the potential loss of funding from the developers. So it's really pleasing that we've been able to review that and cover that off. And then obviously the next step is obviously to continue and implement the rest of these recommendations as soon as possible.
So, can I come back on that just very quickly? Is it a lack of resources to you and to Ruth? Is it a lack of resources in the teams to do the work?
From my, I've got a lot of, I've obviously got to prioritise the whole of the finances of the council, and the committee is obviously aware of some of the pressures that we're having, such as producing the financial statements as well. So just two simple things like that is, that's what we've got, almost competing challenges. However, what I would say for something like this is it's predominantly non-financial. The Section 106 is predominantly non-financially driven. It's the controls around how the planning, the administration, and the governance, which the report that Pierce and his team produced was more about the overall governance as opposed to the finances of the scheme.
Okay.
Who's trying to get in?
Oh, sorry.
That's okay. Thank you. I just wanted to add that, of course, one of the other issues with kind of getting to the point that we can do full reconciliation is all of the steps that need to happen first. So in order for Execom to be up to date, the general ledger needs to be up to date so that we can test the systems against each other. And of course, there's a lot of work going on to make sure that both of those systems are able to talk to each other and we are able to be confident in the two pieces of data before we then check them against each other. Because if we start checking data that's not fully up to date against each other, then we end up in a worse position than we were before. So I think that's really important to note, is there are steps, before we can get to the full reconciliation. All of the recommendations that are open, so a couple of them relate to the fees and charges booklet, which obviously colleagues in audit weren't able to close until after full council, and these papers were published before Budget Council, so those recommendations have now been closed, and all of the other recommendations are related to that reconciliation. So that is the last point I think that's outstanding. And just to reassure the committee that, myself and Greg and the head of place have spent a significant amount of time on trying to make sure that we do have the confidence in the position that the council are in. And it has been, relatively challenging given all of the other stuff that's been going on, such as the cyber incident, for example. But we're pleased that we've been able to get to a position where we're confident around those 5 agreements that were originally raised. So I think that's really important. And I think the piece of work that has been done by colleagues and obviously by officers taking it forward, there's been some real positives that have come out of that, and I think that's the real value of internal audit. And I think additionally there'll be some further work which comes out of it which wasn't recommended, that working with members we've recognised would be really important to develop Section 106 going forward, such as consultation with members on how things are spent in their ward. So I think actually what we've been able to do, having focused on the subject, is take it beyond what was originally recommended because of the focus that we've had and how important it is to communities.
Back briefly on something that Greg said, and I'm always reluctant to challenge Greg because he's always so convincing when he speaks in the first place. But you said, Greg, that you didn't think that any of this work was finance driven. I think that was the word you used, but it is monetary driven and finance driven. That's the whole reason I came to internal audit in the first place, when we were hundreds of thousands of pounds adrift between what the record said and what council papers said and what this and what that said. The whole thing was driven initially by financial discrepancies, and that's why this whole report came from. So when you were almost implying that, it's the governance we've got to get right. It's not just that. It's the implications for getting the figures right, and more importantly, knowing what figures there are and that they're right, and that the money that we've had from 106 is going to be spent in the neighbourhoods that we represent. That, to me, was one of the driving forces for me. There's a lot of money potentially which we could have got our mitts on. That's not a very clever way of saying it, but we could have had a say in how that 106 money was spent. So, Greg, sorry to unusually challenge you, but it is finance driven in that context.
Yeah, and I apologise, Andrew. I didn't mean to belittle it in any way with regards to the lack of finance. I just think it's the overall governance of how we got from A to B, if you like, which obviously incorporates the finance. I don't want to take away there is obviously that financial element, and the committee is obviously well aware of what the report said, and what the potential numbers and risks were that we've luckily been able to address. But yeah, it's now as more just looking about how we take it forward and ensuring that governance is put in place so that it covers the whole of Section 106, including the finances. I didn't want to belittle the finances anyway.
Anybody else? Okay, I don't have any other further questions. I see we've got a new principal auditor, counter fraud specialist, which is good news. And the only other thing I would like to say is this detailed schedule of all the outstanding items is very useful. Impossible to read off paper, but it's great on the screen. It gives us all the detail behind all these outstanding items, and that's quite good to have because you can actually read through it and it answers a lot of the questions rather than bring them to committee. So yeah, that's a good development in this report. So if we can keep that going, it'd be really appreciated. Okay, so I think what do we have to do here? Just to note this report. I guess I take it we're all happy to do that. And we'll move on to item number 9, which is the draft internal audit plan for next year. So, Piyush,
Yes, so thank you again, Chair. So on page 125 of your agenda pack, you have the draft internal audit plan for 2024-25, which has been developed, led by Bruno, undertaking an extensive risk analysis of the council's business activities, as well as wide-ranging consultation with officers. So the summation of that is the draft plan that you have in front of you. And I'd just like to say a couple of things. The first is obviously that risks change over the course of time, as we all know. So what you see now may not necessarily be the work that we end up undertaking throughout the course of the year. But the other thing, and I'm sure the Vice Chair will agree with me, is that obviously members of this committee are also able to suggest areas for audit attention where you feel that would be beneficial. So happy to take questions.
Okay. It all looks very comprehensive. I see there's a few of the things that have been carried forward, statues and monuments. It's good to see that, yeah, the community infrastructure levy, that's obviously going to be the next big thing after 106. One other thing that did catch my eye was freedom of information. Is there an issue as regards how the council handles freedom of information requests?
No particular concern, but the volumes of those FOI have increased a lot, and therefore the inherent risk have increased. And we were keen to have a look how those FOI are being handled in a timely manner. So no particular concern, but an increase of the inherent risk.
As a rough rule of thumb, how much are these requests costing us? Do we know?
Sorry, Chair, was that for an individual response to an FI?
Yeah. Depends how much each one takes to.
Obviously, we're seeing a wide range of freedom of information requests at the moment, which can vary in a number of different requirements. I think there's set limits on what we're allowed to turn down, if you like. So I believe it's something around 18 hours. If it takes something along around 18 hours, the council's allowed to say that that's too troublesome or too onerous. But I can't put a figure on an individual one, I'm afraid, at this stage.
And any two are not going to be the same anyway. But okay. Saj.
Thanks, Chair. I just wanted to touch on this freedom of information. I personally have made a request a few months ago for a FOI, for some information, not just about myself, but about a colleague as well. I made that information request to the City Council and the County Council. The County Council happily provided me with the data I requested, including the information from another colleague. The City Council, on the other hand, didn't provide me with information relating to a colleague, only specifically relating to myself. Subsequently, what's happened recently is I have submitted another FOI with evidence from the County Council to say they provided me with the data I requested for myself and a colleague. And now the City Council, we received an email last week, I think to all members, to say information can be provided on request regarding any members. So where has that change of direction come from? And why was it refused the first time round? Is there political pressure on this, or is this just down to officer discretion? How does it work? Because for consistency, I would have thought if the county council are providing the data or information, surely the city council can be doing it as well. Thank you.
I'm guessing you can't answer questions on individual requests.
Sorry, can I just come back on the point that Councillor Patel made and reassure him that there's no political pressure being exerted by the Cabinet on any FOI requests that come through this authority. We very rarely know the FOI requests that come through. The only time that we're engaged is if we are named in them individually. So just want to reassure you there's no political pressure coming from the Cabinet in that regard.
So, Ruth or Greg?
Yeah, unfortunately, it's not my general area, I'm afraid, so I don't have any additional details to provide.
I mean, I suppose I can't comment on the original request that Councillor Patel has raised, but what I am aware of is that a number of similar requests over previous weeks then started to come in, which obviously meant that the council and officers took some advice on how best to handle such requests, and hence that was where the email then came from. So it created the need to review its approach, I suppose is how we would say it. Like I say, I can't comment on your original request, but I do think there were many more similar that started to come in after that.
I'm back, because mine was back in August, September last year, and I think recently there seems to have been an influx of FOIs. But mine was just the fact that purely if County Council can provide the data, why couldn't we? And why, this was back in September, why did we decline to provide that information? And what's changed? Is it because we realised, or we've spoken to, one legal has spoken to county and they've said there's nothing to stop us providing that information, and that's why you should be providing it as well? I don't know, that's just curiosity. Thank you very much, Chair.
I've got a managing officer here, Tom Clark, wants to say something.
It's just to say that the area of law you're talking about is a spectrum of opinion, and you can get at one end and the other end. And the county council might have been at the far end, the city council somewhere else. These things get debated, they get nuanced over time, and no doubt that's what's happened in this case. So don't be surprised if things change over time, because they get debated, we get fresh advice from the Information Commissioner, and things move on.
I've got another question, if it's okay to move on. If I'm reading this paper rightly, Chair, on item 17, the list talks about finance debt recovery. That's part of the work programme for next year, I take it. Yeah. We're on the same page. Line 17.
Yeah.
So the commentary says debt recovery was paused following the cyber incident and has recently commenced, but with a significant backlog. The audit will include debtor activities to assess the veracity of control in this area. So we're saying that, you know, money that we're owed is increased. I was trying to look at, what was the word again? Significantly. Has there been a significant increase in the amount of people, companies owing us money that we're aware of? That seems to be what the commentary is saying. Is that right?
So backlog is normal, but what happened is the information. What happened is the chasing of the backlog, which hasn't happened because the data was not available. So as a result, yes, more areas, less chasing, and potentially more areas.
So I'm just trying to read that. So what about that? What percentage of our bad debts increased by?
I don't have that number. No.
But the use of the word significant is significant, isn't it? Not trying to play games with anybody, but you wouldn't say it's significant if it was anything like that significant.
Yeah, no, exactly. It is significant, but I can provide you with information after that committee, but I don't have that on top of my head now.
Okay, but that's something that I wasn't aware of, that bad debts had increased and there was backlog. I just assumed that we'd just carry on enforcing debts and taking whatever it takes to recover them.
One thing to mention as well is that document has been through different reviews, but was initially produced back in November. So the significance of November may not be the same one as of now. I don't know the work that has been done since then.
No, sure, I get that. But if you could give me a written answer, that would be really helpful, please. What counts as a significant increase? It's okay.
Yeah, okay.
Thank you.
Anybody else got any questions or comments on the draft audit plan for next year? Okay, so the recommendations are that we are asked to resolve to agree that the internal audit plan for next year reflects the risk profile of the council and approve the internal audit plan as detailed in the appendix. So I'm guessing we're all happy to do that. Okay, right, we'll move on as I try to find my agenda yet again. So we're on to the capital strategy.
Thank you, Chair. I'd just like to introduce my colleague, Richard. Richard will be presenting the capital strategy. So, Richard is our new accountancy manager who's joined the finance team, providing some additional accountancy skills and qualifications into the team since my predecessor retired and I moved up to this position. So yeah, I'd just like to welcome Richard, who will introduce this report.
Thanks, Greg. So the capital strategy, it basically plans out our capital expenditure for the next 3 years and then how we plan on financing that expenditure. In the second part of the paper, it shows our prudential indicators and how in line we are with those. We asked that Audit and Governance recommend that the capital strategy be approved by full council.
It's a well-written report, very easy to follow. It's good. It is good, actually. A few questions, but nothing, anything major. And one thing that caught my eye, and you may not be here long enough to know the answer, in the sense that I see that our limit for capitalisation is £6,000. Just wondering where that number comes from. Seems quite high.
If I answer 6,000, it's that's the standard sit for threshold, as I understand it, and it's been 6,000 for as long as I've been around. You know, obviously we review it on an annual basis, but that's the general limit. Obviously, it allows for a number of assets costing below 6,000 to be grouped together in order. So, like in the old days, laptops. But that is the general limit, 6,000.
No, it was just something that I got a feeling where, but then again, I sort of retired from the job of 2018. I think we capitalised everything over 1,000 or something, but maybe that was just us. The other question I had, 132, the required council investment this is for the forum, will be 107 million. I'm sort of thinking public sector contracts and the way they always seem to balloon up in value as they go along. Is that 107 million fixed value?
As I understand it, Chair, the 107 million is the total fixed amount for the contracts with regards to the forum. I'm not aware of any additional costs at this stage with regards to that project.
Yeah, so it is fixed, so that's good. The only other question I had, I think it mentioned somewhere 2.7 million capital revenue coming in. I'm wondering what's that from?
106.
Is it?
No, don't.
No. Well, it couldn't be that. No. Capital receipt. Are we selling something off?
Capital receipts.
Actually, I got a feeling Jeremy's answer.
Yeah, I know the answer to this one, definitely. Obviously the council has a number of assets and looks to sell as required, depending on what the requirements are regarding those assets. This document sets out how we plan to fund our capital programme, which includes the use of capital receipts. So we might actually have more or less than that in any given, this is obviously a budgeted figure, but with regards to the 2.7 that you're talking around there, the vast majority, as I understand it, is with regards to the Whitefriars apartments. So the apartments which were built as part of the first phase of the Forum project, as opposed to being any additional commercial assets held by the council.
Anybody got any questions or comments on the capital strategy? No, I think it's something, generally in council itself, everyone's in agreement with. So what we are asked to, the recommendations are that we recommend that the capital strategy be approved and that the capital strategy at Appendix 1 be approved. So it's the same thing. So effectively approved. So everyone's happy to approve that? Okay, thank you very much. I think what's coming next is the Treasury Management Strategy.
Thanks, Chair. So the Treasury Management Strategy, like the Capital Strategy, sets out our expected Treasury activities for the next 3 to 4 years. In the second half of the strategy, we set out the prudential indicators, etc. We're asking that you recommend the strategy be approved to full council, and as part of that, the council are asked to approve increased borrowing limits in 24-25 of 208 million and in 25-26 of 305 million. Thank you.
Again, it strikes me as being quite sensible and cautious, which probably sums me up as well. It's absolutely fine. There was one query I had which was a bit strange. Page 155. A lot of the finance we've raised for various projects comes from the Public Works Loan Board, and I notice here I always thought their borrowing rates would be lower than the bank rates, but it doesn't seem to be the case. And on the table in page 155, or am I being a bit too general?
I suppose they're based on the specifically on the gilt rates as opposed to the bank rate per se. So that although when the base rate has been quite low, the PWB rates were very more consistent, should we say, with the bank rate. As they've moved away over the last 12 to 18 months, we've seen a much greater increase in some of the PWLB rates, but it all depends on the gilts on the years. I think it's the 25-year PWLB rate, which is actually generally the highest rate. And you start to see it dropping back down as you get over to the 50 years. But yeah, they're not interlinked, I'm afraid.
We always tend to go, I think, for the Public Works Loan Board loans, as indeed most local authorities. If it was the case that they were cheaper elsewhere, would that be something we would be looking at? Or it doesn't actually say in this strategy that we have to use the Public Works Loan Board?
Yeah, the council is not required to use any one, depending on what the rates are available and the institutions that are willing to get involved, should we say, with local authorities. There is lots of options available. The committee might be aware that some of the other local authorities across the country have taken out all kinds of interesting financing models. Issued their own bonds, etc. And it all depends on the appetite and the project that that individual authority is doing. Gloucester City, generally, our capital programme is significant for a district council, but it's a relatively small capital programme compared to a county or a unitary who might be looking to raise hundreds, if not billions of pounds, in which case the private institutions are more interested in lending money to those sort of projects where they've got a bigger chance of return. I think for the city council, we wouldn't rule it off the table, but the PWB offers a much easier and a quicker solution and simpler solution for the city.
Sounds like it would be unlikely we would get a more favourable rate elsewhere anyway, because it's relatively small loans compared to what a lot of the big banks are.
Yeah, I would expect, you know, you're needing to do a project 50 million plus to even get any interest from anyone else. But, you know, we don't, that's not really what the city council does.
Steve?
Why the authorised debt limits are going to increase the estimates in future years? Are we expecting to be borrowing more money and therefore incurring greater debt for some of our capital projects?
Yes, Steve. If I can respond to that, the profile tries to match the capital programme and the capital strategy that we've just been discussing. So you take the work that we're doing at the forum, for example. That's a 3 to 4 year project. So we'd expect to see their borrowing increase as we spend the money over the life of the project. So as a result, we need to increase our authorised borrowing limit in order to meet that need to borrow in order to pay off the works that we're doing as we complete the capital programme.
Anybody else got any other further comments or questions? Okay, so we're just asked to resolve the Treasury Management Strategy and Appendix 1 be approved, and the authorised borrowing limit be approved at 280 million for 24-25, 305 million for 25-26, and 305 million for 26-27, and the potential indicators set out in Section 2 of the strategy be approved. Everyone happy with that?
Yep.
Okay, thank you very much. That takes us on to item number 12, the Audit and Governance Committee Work Programme. I've sort of looked at this in a way, and this is actually tonight's meeting. So I'm afraid I don't have a committee work programme for next meeting. So I'm afraid whoever's going to be chair of the next meeting, or the next audit and governance chair, it will have to draw this up before the next meeting. But I'll be more than happy to help, and I'm sure we'll publish it well in advance. So my apologies for that. And on that note, we're now at the end of the meeting. I don't know if this is going to be my last meeting or not, but I know 1 or 2 members will be retiring from the council. So on behalf of myself and Andrew here, thank you very much, everybody. Thank you for your support from the officers and auditors. And thank you, members, for coming to the meetings and asking the questions and making sure that we're doing our job, really, of ensuring good governance for the authorities. So much appreciated, everybody, and thank you very much. And we're done.